The truth behind the wedding toast that shocked everyone. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I raised my glass and said, "Before vows, one truth must be heard." The band hushed. Somewhere a fork hit a plate, bright as a bell. My voice carried through the ballroom like someone else had borrowed my chest and breath. I'm Alex, Lily's big sibling and maid of honor. The one who built this day out of lists and late nights, who color-coded a future so my sister could step into it without tripping. If you know me, you know I keep receipts, actual ones, and the kind you only open when the room demands honesty. Tonight, the room demands it. Patrick gives me that movie star grin that made the caterer comp an extra tray of oysters. He likes his life manicured. No weeds, no wind, no questions. Short and sweet. He'd whispered when I stood, 2 fingers tapping where a watch would be on my wrist. I smiled back because that's what you do when someone underestimates you in public. You let them. You let them right up until you don't. Aunt Ruth sits 3 tables back, hands around a water glass like it's a lighthouse lantern. We placed cards together this afternoon. She asked, soft but steady, "If something smells wrong, will you say it out loud?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She's watched me long enough to know I don't light matches for fun. I light them when I smell gas. Behind me, a projector hums. The hotel provided the stand. I brought the drive. On it are statements, screenshots, and documents a pastor could understand and a lawyer could not ignore. No conjecture, no gossip, just a plain map of money and time. If I'm wrong, I ruin a wedding. If I'm right, I prevent a life sentence. Either way, I will lose something tonight. Maybe my sister's trust, maybe my family's peace, maybe the quiet version of myself I outgrew while investigating. I meet Lily's eyes, bright, open, trusting, and feel my throat threaten to close. I think of the coffee stains on her budget notebook, the way she circled first apartment and drew a little door with a heart on it. Patrick lifts his glass toward me, showman to spotlight, daring me to entertain. I press the remote. The screen behind me blooms from white to a title slide with a date and a simple line. Money has a trail, and so does love. Someone in the back whispers, "Is this part of the plan?" Lily met Patrick at a charity 5K where he didn't sweat. That should have been my first clue. Everyone else had shirts plastered to their backs like damp flags, but Patrick glided through the finish as if the air carried him. He held a cup of orange slices and handed one to Lily like a small, bright medal. He is handsome in the way that photographs prefer, with a jaw trained to find light. He told us he worked in consulting, the kind that never quite fits inside a sentence. Lily called me that night and told me he listened, really listened, about the part-time kids she tutors and the way she saves for small things, new tires, a weekend trip, a stand mixer in a hopeful color. I said I was happy. I was. Happiness can sit beside unease with both feet on the floor. By month 3, he knew our mother's favorite hymn and the bakery that still slices cake the old way, with a string. He sent flowers on Tuesdays because Mondays already try too hard. My unease was small then, a pebble in a shoe I could ignore if I didn't walk too far. When he learned I handle budgets for a small nonprofit, he smiled and said, "Admirable. Not everyone has the stomach for big numbers." He made it sound like I was afraid of heights. Aunt Ruth liked him until she didn't. "Charm has a half-life," she said, pouring tea. "Let's see what survives attention." We watched him price suits the way other people price used cars. We watched him tip extravagantly when eyes were on him, and exactly 18% when they were not. Lily mistook that for consistency. I understood it as calibration. The demeaning jab landed 2 weeks ago, a little knife disguised as a joke. We were at the bakery paying deposits when Patrick laughed and told the clerk, "Alex is our family auditor. Won't let us spend a dime without a spreadsheet." The clerk laughed. I smiled. Then he added, "Some people manage pennies because they've never been trusted with dollars." Lily's hand tightened on my arm, a small apology. I pretended I didn't bleed. Love can make a person fluent in excuses, which is how we miss the obvious until it rents space in our living room and asks for a key. But a stranger's text would make denial sound like treason tonight. The first invoice came with Lily's name spelled Lily, the double L like an overcorrection. Patrick waved it off. "Vendors," he said, always on autopilot. The second came to Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Avery. even though Lily kept her name on every form. I asked the planner to correct the files. She said Patrick handled payments directly now, and wasn't that generous? My pebble of doubt rolled under the couch, out of sight, but not out of the room. Then the florist called me instead of Lily. "We need the remaining balance," she said, gentle but firm. I opened the spreadsheet, paid, in green. I pulled the bank app, pending, in gray. Patrick slid next to me, smelling like the kind of cologne that costs a decision. "Bank's fraud filter," he said. "Happens when you're moving real amounts." He winked at me the way a magician asks you to watch the left hand. The florist sighed. "We'll hold the blooms till Friday." That night a text hit my phone from an unknown number. "Tell Pat I'm not doing this anymore. Child deserves better." I stared until the letters unhooked from words. I answered, "You have the wrong number." The reply arrived in a minute. "You're Alex, right?" I didn't respond. I screenshotted, filed it, and felt the first cold finger of fear slide under my collar. Patrick grinned through everything, as if reality had agreed to only meet him by appointment. He overtipped the bartender and underpaid the piano player, but only the bartender smiled near the head table. He kept Lily floating just above the ground where my questions lived. "You worry for sport," he told me, kissing her temple. "Try hope." I tried. Hope is heavy when you carry it alone. When the venue sent a lien notice for unpaid equipment rentals, it arrived in Lily's email with Patrick's forwarding note. "Spam. Ignore." I started to wonder if the spam was us. I called the venue manager and asked for dates, amounts, and check numbers. She read them like wires. May 14th, $4, 200 returned for insufficient funds. May 28th, $1, 750 declined. June 3rd, cashier check promised, never received. I wrote each item, circled, returned, and felt the floor tilt toward open water. And then the delivery guy handed me a sealed box marked replacement phone. The box wasn't for Lily. The label said Patrick Avery, replacement unit. I carried it to the rehearsal dinner anyway, because accidents prefer audiences. The restaurant was the kind where the walls remember birthdays and divorces, and the waiters know which families like extra lemons. Patrick was already holding court when I arrived, voice pitched to Carrie. "Alex," he boomed, "our spreadsheet sentinel." Laughter that didn't belong to anyone in particular. I set the box by his elbow. Delivery came to my place. He tapped the lid with 2 fingers, unimpressed. "Work phone," he said. "You know how it is." I do know. People who need second phones usually need second stories. Aunt Ruth watched the box the way a lifeguard watches a quiet child in the deep end. Dinner turned to toasts. Patrick stood, glass aloft. "To Lily," he said, "who believes the best in people, even when some people cannot count past pennies." Head swiveled. I smiled, the way you smile when someone snaps your picture mid-blink. "Patrick," Lily said softly, but he was rolling now. "Alex means well," he continued, "but not everyone is cut out for big leagues." He air-signed a signature with his finger. "Some of us are built to oversee decimals. Some of us sign checks." A server appeared with the kind of timing only real life manages and set the box down again because Patrick had nudged it aside. "Sir, you need to sign." The receipt listed the carrier I knew Lily used for her plan. "Why is your work phone on Lily's family account?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Patrick didn't blink. "Bundle discount," he said. Alex breathed. He signed with a flourish and handed back the pen like he'd tipped fate. After dessert, the manager approached me about the room balance, again pending. Patrick clapped his shoulder, promised cash in the morning, and tucked the receipt into his jacket. When he hugged me goodnight, he whispered, "Don't embarrass Lily tomorrow." I watched him leave with the box under his arm and a grin tied to the back of his head like a helium balloon. A woman answered and said, very calmly, "We need to talk." The carrier rep confirmed the line was on Lily's plan. Authorized by Patrick using Lily's login the same day, he told us privacy was sacred. When I asked about the previous device, she hesitated and said there were 2 IMEI numbers on file last month. Then one was deactivated after excessive international roaming. She couldn't disclose destinations without Lily present. I thanked her and stared at the ceiling like answers might settle there if I kept still enough. In the morning, I brought coffee to Lily's hotel suite. Her veil hung from a lampshade like a tired cloud. "Please," she said before I'd finished hello. "No drama." She took my hands. "I just wanted A to be quiet." I told her about the account, the box, The pending balances. She nodded too quickly, like a bobblehead dog in a rear window. He's handling it, she said. He said he's consolidating his business lines. You don't get it. He moves money around. I get it, I said. I just don't know where it goes. Patrick arrived with pastries and a kiss that lasted half a minute too long for an audience. Ladies, he said, and winked in my direction like we shared a joke. Aunt Ruth sat in the corner, crocheting a row that kept needing to be undone. Patrick, she said, without looking up, do you believe truth hurts people, or the hiding does? He laughed. Depends who's buying. She undid another stitch. My mother pulled me into the bathroom and whispered, we cannot have a scene. Your father invited clients. Think about the photographs. She has always measured peace in frames and albums, as if trouble can be cropped out by a careful hand. If you love me, she said, let today be pretty. I love her, which is why I told her this wasn't about pretty. I felt the room dividing along invisible seams, between comfort and conscience, between keeping and keeping quiet, until even my breath threatened to pick a side. In the hallway, Aunt Ruth pressed a printout into my hand. A dark office door labeled Sageview Financial with a taped notice, closed for non-payment, June 12th. You're not crazy, she murmured. Just early. I folded the proof till it fit behind my phone case. Then my phone buzzed with 3 words. He missed child support. I stepped into the hallway and called the number that had texted me. A woman answered on the second ring, voice steady like someone who has outlasted storms. My name is Mara, she said. Patrick owes support for our son. He promised to clear it before his weekend. She didn't say wedding. I asked for dates. She read them. April 3rd, $1, 200 missed. May 1st, partial $400. June, nothing. July, nothing. Case file 19 to 5482, she added, like a password. I wrote it down and leaned against the wallpaper that tried to look like linen. Why text me? I asked. Because you return calls, she said. Because Lily doesn't. The words landed with a dull thud I felt in the soles of my feet. I didn't tell Mara I'm the sibling who saves receipts. She already knew that kind of person by the sound of my questions. He says his business is restructuring, she said. He says his accountant messed up. I asked for proof. She sent screenshots of emails with bank routing numbers and a note promising to fix this after the transition. Keep faith. The signature read Sageview Consulting, the same name on Aunt Ruth's notice. I opened Lily's joint account app. She'd added me for vendor tracking and scrolled through outgoing payments. There it was, May 14th, $4, 200 to Stonebridge Consulting, LLC. I searched the entity database. Inactive, dissolved last year. I screenshotted and stared until my reflection looked like a stranger wearing my face. I pulled Venmo and through Lily's shared feed, watched Patrick send heart emojis to R.K. with captions like, for the bunk bed, soccer reg, late fee sorry. The amounts were $75, $120, $45, small, regular, like someone paying for a life he didn't claim in public. Aunt Ruth found me at the ice machine, because rituals like water and air soften bad news. Say it plain, she said. I told her everything. The child support file, the dissolved company, the love notes and transactions. He's using Lily's stability the way a climber uses pitons, she said. Temporary holds. Then he keeps moving. I asked, do I confront him or protect the day? She looked at the ceiling like prayer might drift there easier than to an altar. Protect the life, she said. Days are replaceable. At the phone store across from the church, I asked a rep to confirm a maze with Lily's authorization. 2 devices tied to Patrick's number, 1 active, 1 reactivated this week. The rep read a city code for roaming that didn't match his supposed business trip. I wrote it down because proof is heavier than suspicion, and I needed weight. You okay? The rep asked, seeing my face blanch in the glass reflection. We have chargers on sale. Everything I held as private caution hardened into public responsibility with a single printable line. I pressed print, and the warm paper made the next decision for me. The courthouse records office smelled like old envelopes and newer worry. I slid the slip of paper with the case number to the clerk and watched her eyebrows rise just enough to register recognition. Child support arrears. I paid for certified copies because the word certified calms rooms that flinch at truth. The file had Patrick's full name, a past address that matched his driver's license, and a notation. Employer refuses wage verification. Subject claims independent contractor. Outside, the summer heat felt like an accusation. I folded the documents once, then again, the way you fold a letter you never wanted to send. In the parking structure, I found an orange envelope tucked under a windshield wiper on Patrick's car. Unpaid parking citation, camera timestamped at 10:19 p.m. on June 7th. He had told Lily he was at a client dinner across town that night. The ticket placed him on Riverside Avenue, a block from an apartment building whose name I recognized from a Venmo memo. June rent, Riverside. I felt the floor of the day shift under my feet like an elevator that doesn't stop on your floor. I drove past the building. The call box listed M. Reyes, 3B. I didn't press it. I took a photo of the directory and the posted leasing office hours. Back in my car, I checked Lily's messages in our shared wedding folder. A PDF popped open, a vendor insurance form Patrick emailed from the office, timestamped the same night as the ticket, 10 minutes before the camera flashed his plate on Riverside. The alibi didn't just wobble, it lay down. At the bank, the manager recognized Lily's name from the joint savings application. "We flagged unusual activity," she said, glancing at the glass walls like they might grow ears. She pointed to 3 cash advances from Patrick's card, $600, $800, $1,000, each within 24 hours of major wedding payments due. He was patching holes with borrowed buckets. "Can we freeze?" I asked. "Not without Lily," she said, "but we can warn." She printed a notice, high-risk pattern detected, confirm all transfers verbally. I called Pastor Ellis because truth needs a room that understands vows. We met in his office lined with mismatched chairs and framed verses. I told him I wasn't sure whether I was saving a wedding or saving a person from one. He listened with the kind of silence that counts as labor. "You have facts," he said at last. "You also have love. Facts without love bruise. Love without facts blinds. You must pick both, or you'll pick neither." He offered to be present if I chose a public disclosure. "A witness is a kindness," he said. I drove home through streets that knew my car by heart and laid out the documents on my kitchen table in chronological order, like a timeline that refused to look like coincidence. Aunt Ruth came by with a thermos and said nothing for 5 minutes. Then she looked at me, at the photos, at the dates, and nodded once like a judge accepting a plea. "We're past rumor," she said. "Now we're at responsibility." My last open question flapped in my chest like a trapped bird, demanding light. I needed to confirm whether the Riverside lease carried Patrick's signature today. The leasing office opened at 9. I was there at 8:50, pretending to read a brochure about dog parks so I wouldn't stare at the door. When it unlocked, a woman with a neat bun and a pin chain asked how she could help. I explained I was verifying a reference for a Patrick Avery. She flipped a screen, then another. "We have a co-signer Avery," she said. "Primary is Maria Reyes. Unit 3B. Lease began March 1st. My stomach did something unhelpful. "Is his signature on file?" I asked. "We can't share documents," she said, "but I can say we have identification for both parties." She turned the monitor a fraction too far, and the edge of a scanned ID showed Patrick's grin, smug even in monochrome. I stepped outside and called Mara. "Do you live on Riverside?" I asked. Silence, then, "Not anymore." Child support court had warned her about cohabitation claims complicating arrears. "They said if I moved in, he'd say I didn't need payments," she said. "So he paid the lease somewhere else and visited." She laughed, tired and small. "He likes arrangements that don't look like arrangements." The bottom line was clean. Patrick financially supported a second household while draining Lily's. It wasn't an affair whispered in corners. It was a budget with furniture. I returned to the church and found Lily in a robe the color of quiet mornings. She looked soft and ready to belong to her own life. "I need 5 minutes," I said. She smiled, brave and stubborn. "Please not today." I held her hands and told her the facts like weather. Lease dates, ticket timestamp, cash advances, child support file number, screenshots of Stonebridge dissolving last year. She listened without blinking until the part about the lease. "He wouldn't," she said, almost curious. I showed her the photo of the call box. Her face changed from faith to math. "I love him," she whispered. "That's not a crime." "No," I said, "but this is a pattern." She pulled back, anger finally waking. You could be wrong. I want to be. I asked if she'd speak to Pastor Ellis. She nodded, hesitant, as if nodding might be permanent. In Pastor's office, she folded and unfolded a tissue until it looked like lace. He listened to her more than to me. When she finished, he said, "Promises require capacity. If he promised what he cannot deliver truthfully, that is not a promise. It's theater." She stared at the floor. "What do I do at the altar?" He said, "You do not owe the audience a performance." I walked out with the decision I'd feared and the proof I'd hoped not to need. The plan would not be a whisper, it would be a witness. Because after I left, Patrick texted me one sentence that burned the bridge behind me. I spend the afternoon turning suspicion into something a room can understand. The projector remote stays in my pocket like a pulse. I build a folder called Witness, dates first, then amounts, then names. I screenshot the Venmo hearts, crop the usernames, and label each with the day Lily's wedding invoices bounced. I print the child support ledger with the case number in 12-point font, not bold, not shouting. I pull the corporate search for Stonebridge Consulting LLC and highlight, dissolved, last annual filing overdue. I add the leasing office note from my visit, typed as neutrally as a weather report. Riverside Apartments confirms co-signer P. Avery, lease effective March 1st. Aunt Ruth watches me compile, like I'm laying out tools for a repair we both know will require cutting through drywall. "Do not make this an attack," she says. "Make it a map." I nod. Maps don't scream. They point. I call a bank officer I know from a nonprofit seminar and ask for a plain language explanation of cash advances and their risks. She gives me a sentence I write down verbatim. Cash advances are short-term, high-fee borrowing, symptoms of liquidity stress, not wealth. I ask if she can stand by, off-site, to verify definitions if needed. She agrees, provided we keep names out of it. I record a call to the phone carrier with Lily's permission where the rep confirms 2 devices used on the same line last month. One reactivated this week. "We do not track content," he says, "just usage. It's enough. We don't need content to show pattern." Pastor Ellis offers his office printer and, more importantly, his presence. "I will not arbitrate gossip," he says, "but I will stand beside documented truth." We discuss the narrow line between protection and humiliation. I tell him my plan is to present minimal facts with maximal clarity, ending with a choice for Lily, not a verdict for the crowd. He approves, with one condition: Lily must know what's coming. I return to her suite, sit on the floor by her shoes, and read everything aloud like I'm narrating an X-ray. She listens, breathes, and finally says, "If you have to do it kindly." When I step into the hallway, Patrick blocks the exit with a smile that treats the future like a prop. "Whatever you think you have, it'll make you look petty," he murmurs, eyes almost affectionate. "Families forgive winners." I hold his gaze, then my folder. Winning is not the word I need tonight. Protecting is. Surviving is. Telling the truth without turning it into a weapon is. Tonight, the truth will show up wearing names, dates, and receipt numbers. He follows me into the service corridor where the wallpaper stops pretending and the hotel shows its bones. Pipes, carts, detergent scent. "You don't want to do this," Patrick says softly, like a man offering mercy. "You'll ruin her day. You'll make your mother cry. Tomorrow you'll wish you'd kept your little binder to yourself." He steps closer, friendly, intimate. "You're good at being second. Let me be first." The words land with the easy cruelty of someone fluent in ranking people. I'm angry, but anger is a poor editor. I keep my voice even. "Pay your arrears. End the lease. Tell her yourself." He laughs, astonished. "No one respects truth tellers," he says. "They respect closers." He taps my folder. "Close your mouth." Aunt Ruth appears at the far end of the corridor like timing had been scheduled. She doesn't raise her voice. "Patrick, go find your boutonniere." He grins toward her, then returns to me. "Last chance to stay useful," he whispers, breath scented like mint and something burned. I feel the wobble he wants, the pull of peace, the gravity of my mother's eyes, the fear of becoming the story. He knows good people can be steered by shame. He has spent years practicing his hands on that wheel. When he's gone, my knees tremble like I've just outrun a dog I didn't see until I heard teeth. He almost had me, I admit. Aunt Ruth nods. "Charm is a rope," she says. "It feels like silk until it tightens." She puts a small square in my palm. A St. Christopher medal she's carried since I scraped my chin off a bike at 10. Not for luck, she says. For direction. I don't take it as magic. I take it as a reminder that movement can still be toward a place that isn't ruin. Back in the suite, Lily changes into her dress. The room stills. She is beautiful in the precise way of someone who told fabric and pins a private story and made them listen. I'm not asking you to protect me from pain, she says, fastening an earring. I'm asking you to protect me from pretending. I promise. If I speak, I will speak all nouns, no adjectives. And if he confesses privately, she asks. Then we choose privately. I answer. She nods, and the nod doesn't shake. At lineup, my mother grips my arm hard enough to bruise. You will not destroy this family, she says in a whisper blistered by fear. I kiss her cheek. Telling the truth is the only way we survive. Her eyes flood. Her grip loosens. I am both her child and her disappointment in the same breath. Patrick leans in as we walk toward the ballroom, voice light, eyes sharp. Play nice, he says, or I will tell them about your secret. My secret? It's smaller than he thinks and bigger than I wanted. Last year I co-signed on a friend's car loan that turned delinquent, and for 3 panicked months I sold furniture to cover it. It taught me how debt moves like smoke under doors, and how shame makes honest people silent until they choke. I don't scare when he says it. I just understand the script, discredit the witness, shift the spotlight, keep the room busy. We enter the ballroom together as if neither of us intends a collision. The projector waits behind the head table, modest and patient, a tool, not a weapon. I brief Pastor Ellis in a corner. We will present 3 facts, ask Lily if she wants to proceed, and keep the rest in a sealed envelope for legal follow-up. Aunt Ruth sits with the remote like a conductor ready to cue the brass. Lawyer Bennon arrives, invited for blessing the contracts, but really to verify what dissolved means in public records and whether a co-signed lease can complicate support claims. He has a face built for bad news delivered gently. Keep nouns, he says, mirroring my promise. Verbs will tempt you. Dinner ends. Silverware gathers its last soft chorus. Patrick stands and performs gratitude like a man who's watched enough TED Talks to mime sincerity. He thanks the florist, the venue staff, the DJ, everyone but the bank. Then it's my turn. I rise with the careful steadiness of someone crossing a creek on stones she has already tested. I lift my glass and the room hushes into something like prayer. Before vows, one truth must be heard. I say again, this time not as a provocation but as a boundary. Slide 1. Stonebridge Consulting LLC, status, dissolved. Benton reads 2 plain sentences. This entity shows no current legal standing to transact. Payments to it render no contractual protection. Slide 2. Child Support Ledger, names redacted except Patrick's. Pastor explains arrears as promises to a child unmet. Not as sin, not as scandal, just as fact. Slide 3. The lease confirmation typed in 12-point. Co-signer, I say, means responsibility shared with a household not named here. Murmurs ripple. Patrick laughs, bright, companionable. Alex loves a spreadsheet, he calls. Old news, all of it. He pivots to my mother. She forgot to mention her own bad debt. Heads turn. I let the room look at me. I paid it, I say. I didn't hide it. And I didn't fund it with my sister's future. My hands do not shake now. I turn to Lily. Do you want me to stop? She inhales, long and audible, and looks at the screen without blinking. Patrick steps toward the projector, smile shrinking into a baring of teeth, and reaches for the power cord. He doesn't pull the cord because Benton reaches it first and holds the plug like a judge holding a gavel, not striking, just reminding the room that process exists. If you unplug the facts, they do not cease, he says mildly. Patrick drops his hand and switches to the next tactic, volume. This is all a misunderstanding, he insists, chuckling as if we are adorable, energetic, mistaken. I paid the arrears yesterday. The lease is to help a friend. Stonebridge is a holding name we're reviving. Benton shakes his head once. Court shows no payment posted as of this hour, he says. Revival filings are not in the state index. Pastor adds, a friend's rent is a kind deed. Hiding it during vows is not. I click to the call log. Audio waveform visible, numbers masked, date stamped. The carrier rep's voice plays clear. 2 devices active on the line last month. One reactivated this week. The room goes still the way air goes still before a storm decides where to land. Lily stands. Her bouquet trembles. She looks at Patrick like she's measuring him for the first time in inches instead of adoration. Answer without adjectives, she says quietly. Do you co-sponsor another household? He opens his mouth, then spits out a dozen words that wave their arms. Transition, optics, temporary, optics again, loyalty, timing. Yes or no, she says. He grins like a man who has found a cliff and suggests we all pretend it's a curb. It's not what you think. She nods, slow. That is not no. Now the motive crawls out where it can't pretend to be furniture. I show the line where Lily's joint account wired money to Stonebridge the week florals bounced. I overlay the dates of cash advances. I summarize without heat. Money flows from Lily's steady account into yours, out to dissolved entities and a second address, while arrears to your child accumulate. Mara's text buzzes in my pocket like a witness knocking on a door, but I keep it there. The room doesn't need another spark. It's lit. Patrick points at me, index finger a slender spear. You want my life? He says, baffled and triumphant. You want my shine. It is such a small sentence for such a large delusion that I nearly laugh. Instead, I ask the question that will not let us go. Are you free to make promises that require one life? He blinks. He does not understand the math. He understands crowds. She won't leave me, he says, and turns to bask in the room the way plants turn toward windows. Lily lays her bouquet down like a gavel and says, level and crisp, the ceremony pauses now. And then she looks at me and whispers, please come with me to the side room. The side room is where the venue hides extra chairs and quiet truths. We close the door, and the thin wall hums with a ballroom's confusion. Lily sits and folds her hands like a student ready to hear bad news reviewed before an exam. Do I look like a fool? She asks. I tell her no. She looks like a person facing an unexpected fork in a road that still goes forward. Pastor joins us. Then Benton. Then Aunt Ruth with water and the face she wears when grief enters like an uninvited aunt and refuses to leave. What happens legally if I stop? Lily asks Benton. Vendors paid can be negotiated, he says. Unpaid obligations remain unpaid. That's math, not malice. You are not bound to vows you have not made. She nods, then asks quieter, what happens to him? Benton is precise. Child support enforcement will resume. The lease co-signer remains liable. Public embarrassment is not a legal category. In the ballroom, my mother is gathering apologies by the armful. Clients, she whispers to me when I return for a moment. They're texting their drivers. I hug her. I will help you call them tomorrow, I promise. We'll say we chose truth over timing. She looks at me like that line might be a raft, then nods, rescued enough to stand. Patrick tries to follow me into the side room, but Pastor meets him at the threshold with the authority of a man who witnesses promises for a living. Give her 10 minutes, he says. Patrick spits a laugh. She has had 10 years of settling, he replies. She'll settle now. The door closes on the last word like punctuation. Lily takes those 10 minutes and grows a spine in each one. I will not marry you today, she tells Patrick when we open the door. He performs disbelief. He asks for privacy. He blames me, then blames Mara, then blames the economy, then offers a settlement like this is a dispute over catering. Let me pay a year of rent for your first place, he says to Lily. Let me fix the optics. She looks like she's watching a dog try to play chess. Pay your child's rent, she says. Fix that. He leaves, not gracefully. The room absorbs his absence like a bruise absorbing pressure. Slow, hot, inevitable. Family splits along fault lines we didn't draw today, but only revealed. Some look at me like I lit the match. Some like I found the fire in time. The venue holds the deposit. The florist boxes blooms for donation. The band plays standards for a stunned cocktail hour without a couple to orbit. At midnight, I answer angry texts, soft calls, a trollish DM from a faceless cousin who writes, "Hope your nonprofit pays for therapy." I reply, "We have a sliding scale." I sleep 3 hours, then wake to the first email titled Invoice Adjustment, and know my life will be admin and aftermath for months. The week after, our home is quiet in the useful way. Phone calls scheduled, meals simple, no television, just paper and pens, and the kind of conversations that cut knots rather than pick at them. Lily moves into my apartment for now, the guest room smelling like paint I finally had reason to open. We make a list titled Next, and it is ordinary in a way that feels like medicine. Return dress, pause joint account, meet with counselor, ask landlord about a short-term lease. Aunt Ruth arrives every morning with coffee and leaves with laundry like ritual is a scaffold. Pastor recommends a therapist who specializes in boundary grief, learning where you end and someone else begins after you've been braided with their chaos. Lily goes, then I go, then we go together. We learn sentences like, I am responsible for my choices, not your reactions. And no is a full sentence that loves the future. Benton files 2 letters, one to child support enforcement with my notarized witness statement, another to the leasing office outlining co-signer obligations and requesting notice on any arrears. We do not send copies to Patrick. We do not write to win. We write to document. The bank flags Lily's account for verbal verification required and reverses a pending transfer to Stonebridge because the payee lacks legal status. The florist refunds half after hearing the story. The venue keeps the deposit but offers a credit for a future event, which we joke could be a party celebrating not marrying the wrong man. My mother calls more, texts less. She says she is embarrassed. Then she says she is proud. Then she says both at once like truth can hold twins in one lap. I tell her we will host dinner Sunday, and there will be no speeches. She laughs. Real, warm mind. At dinner, we talk about birds at the feeder and Aunt Ruth's neighbor who keeps bees and Pastor's new pair of shoes that squeak like a clarinet. Healing, it turns out, sounds like chairs scraping and forks blaming plates and nothing about scandal for 10 full minutes. We draft a written agreement between me and Lily. I will help for 90 days with finances and logistics. After that, we review and adjust. Both of us can end the arrangement in writing with 1 week's notice. Neither of us uses money to manage feelings. It is the most loving document I've ever signed. On day 15, Lily opens a new checking account, records her first deposit, and smiles the shy smile of someone meeting her own competence again. On the mantel, beside the returned veil, we place a small framed print that reads, Truth is oxygen. Use as needed, not as spectacle. Months later, when the flowers that should have died on tables grow wild in donated vases across the hospice where Lily volunteers, I stand in our quiet kitchen and consider the moment everyone replays, the toast that shocked the room. It wasn't the line. It was the choice to offer facts as a handrail instead of anger as a hammer. I learned that dignity is not silence. It is speaking plainly while holding the door open for someone to walk out with whatever self-respect they can carry. I learned that money is not numbers. It is story, promise, and time braided together, and lies will always fray that braid where stress tests it. I learned that love without verification asks you to gaslight yourself, and love with verification asks you to grade reality on reality's terms. And I learned that being the one who keeps receipts is not a character flaw. It is a vocation when wolves wear tuxedos. Patrick's consequences arrived on paper first. Wage garnishment, court dates, a terse note from a leasing office, and then in quieter forms, people who no longer laugh too easily, rooms that stop applauding on cue. I do not gloat. I recycle envelopes. I answer one final call from Mara when enforcement finally posts payment. It cleared, she says, voice like rain after metal roof heat. Thank you for not letting me be invisible. I tell her thank you for telling the truth before I had a map, and we hang up without promising friendship, only sharing a country called consequence that we both now understand. For viewers older than me, who have outlived more storms than I can name, if you spot a pattern that asks you to pretend, write it down in daylight. Names, amounts, dates, places. Say it out loud to someone you trust, not to everyone. If you must speak in public, keep nouns and verbs short enough that a room could repeat them without gossiping. And before you call any act drama, ask whether it might be surgery, pain now to stop a rot later. If there is a takeaway, it is this: truth and love are not opposites. Use them together like two hands lifting the same heavy box. On a calm morning, I raise a glass of water to Lily's brave beginning and whisper, may our next vows be with ourselves first.